And now we're going to get to the heart of David Morrell's Rambo 3 novelization, the third in the series. We're going to get into Rambo of Arabia itself. Now, I just want to warn you, first of all, I just want to say that I've been waiting to do this one since, the very first days of RAMBOMANIA, when I discovered it. I've told this story a million times, so I'll spare you all now. I originally wrote a 33-page review for this, and somehow, within the last 9 months, I have lost it. Unfortunately. I have, however, resurrected or uncovered, I should say, untuned the notes for that review before I wrote it. So I'm going to try to get through my doctorish handwriting here and read you or kind of go over the notes just to give you the idea of Rambo of Arabia in its entirety, what that movie could have looked like. Very, very, very fascinating. So let us begin, and I hope you enjoy it. Like we did the last two times, we're going to skim the surface of this one. There's so many deeper levels to what I'm going to present here that when you read the book yourself, you're going to unlock hundreds and hundreds of more pages. You're going to unlock hundreds and hundreds of deeper themes and elements and emotions and actions and what's going on. So now getting back to Rambo of Arabia, here Morrell opens up with the 5 truths of Buddha, sometime after the events of the sequel, and Rambo's in the monastery courtyard meditating with a giant Zen bow, fighting between the teachings of the Zen archer, the mystery caught between mind ghosts of his time back in Vietnam, then memories of hope flowing, Teasel and Troutman, eventually into the memories of Ko, seemingly at peace on the outside and completely haunted within. And a lot of flashbacks here and deep study as he takes out a tiny square-inch block of wood target across the courtyard with his arrow. And this is a big bow, and this is a big arrow. It's not like the traditional Rambo bow and arrow. It's huge. It's almost the size of his whole body. And I love the Buddha in the courtyard and the flashback to Rambo post First Blood Part 2, stumbling upon these monks and this monastery, and he smooths them over with a nice warrior peace not war speech, and they give him sanctuary. And Rambo, for his size, gets swindled into working as a blacksmith in town, working that anvil through waves of haunting flashbacks. One night on the way back to the monastery is seduced by gamblers smoking marijuana and wanders over to a warehouse on the waterfront where loin fighters stick fight the night away. And later on in the week, after working through more flashbacks, Rambo decides to do some stick fighting of his own, in a way to punish himself for the death of Ko and all the other things that have transpired. The other chain reactions. And we get this that we talked about when we covered Rambo of the Apes. And we get this amazing scene where loincloth Rambo, he's just wearing a loincloth, goes into battle the stick fighters. And, he goes to battle one stick fighter, and he does not strike, just takes these brutal attacks head on. Like wave after wave after wave of, we get a bloody John Jay, and then suddenly he notices Troutman in the crowd, and this excites him away, and back into war mode. And Rambo quickly dispatches his stick-fighting opponent rather savagely. So, Troutman meets up with Rambo that night on the canal, and his first words to John are "good job," which kind of harkens back to the last book and harkens back to James Cameron's script, which is a couple of videos back if you want to watch it. Rambo strips naked as they talk and puts on his civilian jeans, commando style. They are reunited. This scene is a beautiful scene. Troutman asks Rambo for a favor in the morning and to hear him out, and he's giving him this moment of pause, just so that they can enjoy each other's company after seeing Rambo go through what he was going through and their time and respect. And there's a moment with a tale that follows and a small child which ponders saving one's soul, and Rambo gives the kid, some money from the stick fight. And after a taxi ride in the morning to the foundries, severely impressed with Rambo's hellish surroundings, there is a talk between Rambo and Uncle Sam about Rambo finally embracing his destiny. And the favor is cashed, and Rambo hears out Mr. Griggs, who informs Rambo of a new mission to Afghanistan. TV cover crews and spies, and the minimal compromises and risks. But Rambo downright rejects them and leaves. And the following day, Troutman reaches Pakistan, and his convoy almost comes under attack by 3 gunship choppers. And as they hide, the feeling Troutman experiences is like becoming a rock, which is pretty much what he tries to do. And he literally uses this tactic to hide. And the anticipation is like swallowing broken glass. And once realized, it's already too late, There's a little astral projection theme from First Blood 1972 here, back in Rambo's room at the monastery. He's going through regret, and he's uneasy, and later in the night, Troutman wakes up on the caravan as it's stopped, and they are ambushed, and one of their own is shot right in the face, and Troutman and the tribe traveling with him are taken down and into custody. And I would love to ask David, I think next time I talk to Mr. Morrell, I'm going to ask him about that astral projection theme, because it comes up more than once, especially in First Blood. Rambo shows up at the embassy the next day looking for Griggs and pushing hard, after he's denied and he's told to leave. But Rambo really makes a scene here. This is a great added-in scene. I wish we could have seen this in the movie. Till they almost try to take him out. He almost gets shot. Like, they almost shoot him down inside the embassy. And finally, Griggs reveals himself to Rambo, and Rambo joins him in his office. And Griggs' name is actually Briggs in this one, but not to confuse you, I'll keep it still as calling him Griggs. Anyway, Rambo makes Griggs talk, revealing that after a mix-up at the Afghan border, Troutman and the rest of the party were captured by Afghan troops and were turned over to reigning Soviets in that area. And he labels Troutman as expendable. So Rambo volunteers to go in after him, which is, it's one of those things where I can, they kind of play on Troutman would have wanted it this way, to just, be taken in. There's no, so we don't blow the operation and everything for future attempts to take down this big, superpower that's out there. But, Rambo being Rambo, he's going in. And someone else is going to become expendable. So back at the foundry upon the anvil, we join Rambo in his head once more, knowing what he must do. And he is now creating his primary weapon, becoming one with a miniature sword. He creates a blood groove in it to reduce suction, adds 8 blade notches, 1 for each member of his team. And then we cut to Troutman being airlifted to the enemy fort, and Zyson meets him in his cell, and right off the bat, we get this interrogation and torture, very graphic, and Troutman kind of tells him to go to hell, and Zyson tells him that he's about to give him the guided tour through hell, and then we're introduced to Kurov, and Kurov literally busts Troutman's balls. Like, he literally boot after boot after boot to the balls, you know, to poor Troutman. And finally Rambo arrives in Peshawar, Pakistan, and feelings of pity flood over him as he takes in the new war of religiousness and customs around him. He's taking everything in. The poverty, but how the people are still hopeful even in the worst of situations. And he walks into something like a cross between a walk-in hospital and supply shop full of guns and prosthetics. And he meets up with Musa Ghani. And he receives his 2 crates. And Musa said that Griggs told him upon delivery that included is something old and something new. So there's an ammo, recyclable, and adaptable custom M203 machine gun with rocket launcher that can support an array of different cartridges and ammo types. And this will also help Rambo blend in during a gunfight. It's a pretty cool weapon, and he's got it through most of this ordeal. And it will confuse the enemy of his location or whereabouts during fights. And there's also included a souped up version of the bow and arrow kit with copperhead rippers and these like frag explosive C4 tips and tear gas C4 tips as well, or tear gas tipped arrows. And he pockets Ko's charm and changes clothes, and we catch up to Rambo and Musa later on riding horseback through the mountains. Musa gives Rambo the undefeated in the war speech, and Rambo replies the no shit line, but it's a little more vulgar, and Musa stops to give Rambo a Hindu lesson, as well as Musa stops to pray, and they meet up with some mujahideen at a cabin and have some tea, and they're all singing like Inshallah and all that. So now we enter the wasteland through chemical fields. I think it's this part. Yeah, now we enter this wasteland through these chemical fields, the black wind, and they make preparations as a storm comes toward them. So they make this little makeshift tent, and it's a horrific sandstorm, like horrific, brutal, and it seems they are doomed. Rambo faces the sandstorm head on, has visions of coming face to face with death. Very much like his ordeal in the cave in the first one with the bats, and very much like him being drowned in the slime pit in the sequel, where he thinks he's going to die down there, and there's like worms crawling up his nose, and he can't breathe, and he can't risk trying to breathe or trying to get anything out of his nose or mouth or eyes. There's like snakes and bugs and shit all over him. So he's coming like face to face with death, and the storm, is over him and makes him delirious, and the winds are so powerful that they begin to suffocate. He's getting suffocated to the point where that tent is like sealed against him, and the blankets themselves. And Rambo uses his knife to cut through the blankets, but is then drowned by tons and tons of sand from the storm. He's swallowing sand. He's like vomiting, drowning, repeat. Swallow, vomit, drown, repeat. And he finally digs himself out once it's over, and digs out Musa and the gear and 2 dead horses, and tends to the living horses, and he even has to give Musa CPR. They drink, pray, and gear up again, and continue on through the wasteland.